1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the room. The public will be recognized to ask questions, make comments on the agenda, on the item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room. Identify yourself by name and address prior to speaking. Our minute taker is participating remotely this evening. Committee members, remember to turn your microphones on, and if you don't, you could be assured that the audiovisual staff will remind you. I now call to order this meeting of the Municipal Services, Facilities and Infrastructure Committee and declare we are all here. We have a quorum. And therefore, now moving on to item number 1, we have a communication from Stephen Bragdon and Cheryl Belair, safety issues associated with the driveway at 82 Court Street. Thank you. Mr. Bragdon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having this hearing. That really wasn't our intention when we sent that letter. We just wanted to point out to the committee and the city powers that be that there continues to be an issue up there. I thank you for all the time you spent on this last year. The members of the committee that were there then remember me. Those that don't, well, you might get tired of me after a while. As I said, we weren't really looking for a hearing, but it seemed to stir up some interest in the neighborhood. Last time, I think it was a decision made that you had to treat all of the driveways in that area the same. I didn't think that was the case then, and I don't think it now. I think you could differentiate on driveways on view, because of view, their ability to see the cars coming from either direction, and also the amount of traffic. The more traffic, obviously, the more chance of having an accident. So the solution to our particular problem would be to increase the distance where cars can't park from the north end of our driveway, maybe another car length, because when you come out, you cannot see cars coming from the north if all those parking places are taken. You're too low. You sometimes can get a glimpse through the windows of the parked car, but it's very difficult to see. I'm used to the driveway. I'm very careful when I'm coming out. I won't risk darting out into the traffic, but people that aren't used to it do that and can cause an accident. The woman whose accident we talked about, it was the first time in the driveway. She just came to deliver a cake to someone, and who knows what caused the accident, but certainly she wasn't familiar with it. So differentiating on those two bases as to how much visual distance you give a driveway, I think is a way you could differentiate the driveways. Also, because of the traffic. One other point, I think that the one maybe easier way to solve this problem is to just put parking meters on both sides up past where it turns into more residential area. That would, people don't park further down on West Street because the parking meters are there, and so they have to pay. They'll start at our driveway because that's where the meters stop. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I don't want to take up a lot of your time. Some of you have heard this all before.
No, actually, you put out a couple of new suggestions, so I'm happy to hear that.
Okay.
Committee, you have any questions specifically?
Thank you.
I would say that I am very interested in, at the risk of crossing a line, being supportive. I think it is good, but we need as they say, what makes this driveway different from all other driveways? So that is your challenge. Are you representing?
The owner across the street.
Okay. I was going to call Public Works, but you're up, so fine.
Thank you. Nathan Alexander, owner of 81 Court Street, directly across the street from Mr. Bragdon and Ms. Belair's building, and also speaking on behalf of 83 Court Street, which is the Aloha Yoga Studio owned by J.C. Russell. So we conferred this morning. J.C. couldn't be here this morning, or this afternoon rather. The main topic is that we have had a series of accidents going back to 2021 coming out of the driveway for the exact same reason. So cars parked on Court Street, both to the south and to the north, encroaching on the driveway. And this goes back many years as it pertains to 83 Court Street, the Aloha Yoga Studio, which was formerly the American Red Cross. It got to the point that years ago, the Red Cross Bloodmobile could not even get into the driveway. So the solution back then was a series of signs, and the signage was no parking from here to corner, to try to keep, a few number of cars and keep them away from that sort of outer apron so people coming and going could really see. None of the signage, now that signage has since been removed, on our side at 81 Court and also at 83 Court, there is not any signage, although there are painted lines of parking. The problem is that the painted lines are often not observed. Folks will squeeze in behind an actual parking space, which will then have the tail of a car, encroaching too close into our driveway, meaning that the driver has to leave and really fish around them and be, looking up and down to the north and the south. Our building has a large number of traffic because downstairs there are 5 different psychotherapy offices who often will meet folks for approximately 1 hour. So you have a lot of people coming and going all day long. Our parking lot will fill up. People will come in, realize there's not enough room, have to go back out, find a spot on Court Street. So, but the accident history here really started to ramp up about 5 years ago. So we brought this to the attention of the city through email, sending a few photos of folks kind of encroaching. The viewpoint at that point from the city response was that once the parking spaces were actually plotted out on Court Street, that a lot of this problem would go away. The problem hasn't gone away, though we haven't had a specific accident coming out of 81 Court in the last 12 months that I'm aware of. The accident in the Bragdon building at 82 Court is really of a big concern to us. On our side as well, we have an added hazard, which is that we have really low, really cute fruit trees that will fill in. So folks are looking above big SUVs if they look left and right trying to get out of our driveway, and they have to kind of look through these fruit trees. So, though I do not have a specific solution, all I can say is that if consistency and continuity in our area is the main objective, we don't have that right now because the Bragdon building, with, I believe there's some photos in there, you can see the sign that says no parking to corner, one parking space that's kind of all zigzagged out to let people know you may not park there, and they still had this accident. We have probably 30 to 40% less visibility than their building does right now, and the fruit trees to contend with. And so as you go to the north of us, 2 buildings close to the Putnam's 1911 office, you'll see there's one sort of corner that has the same zigzags, don't park here on this zigzag. So some property owners have more clear demarcation that says this is not a space. We don't have that at 81 Court. Some have signage, some don't, but we are very concerned for anybody who's visiting our offices, which is regular, and in our case as well, a lot of senior citizens coming as we're now a trust company, so we have a lot of visitors who are in fact senior citizens as well. So though no specific solution, we emailed over just before this meeting sort of a memo for your review with documentation of going back to 2021 of specific accidents that took place, so you can layer that into the accident that Mr. Bragdon and Ms. Belair referred to as well. So this has been a documented problem, and we do appreciate the parking spaces. We appreciate all the time that the city has put in to understand the matter, but we are still contending with a pretty unsafe situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the gentleman? Public Works, oh, hang on. I'd like to get Public Works Director, and then I'll call you up, Cheryl. Just stay balanced.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this thing on? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucier, Public Works Director. Largely, I'm going to say I agree with everything that we've already heard tonight. I understand that it can be difficult to see around a car that's parked close to your driveway. I don't disagree with that at all. There was a couple of items in Mr. Bragdon's letter that I can't actually speak to right now. I don't have any specific data on the speed of traffic on Court Street. My suspicion is that we're going, if we measured it, we will find what we find in other major arteries throughout the city, that the 85th percentile is somewhere between 30 and 34 miles per hour. That tends to be pretty consistent. Unfortunately, what and I wish that I could find a solution that said, this is what's unique about Mr. Bragdon's driveway. I can't find anything unique about that property that would pose a special hardship on that one property where we could say, here's a circumstance that warrants treating this property different than every other property. And as Mr. Alexander pointed out, across the street, they have difficulty seeing around cars that are parked in front of their driveway. I think you would find if you took a poll of the neighborhood that condition exists up and down Court Street, up and down Washington Street. And it is completely, I should point out, that it's completely within your purview to direct us to write an ordinance to make that a no parking zone, and we'll go ahead and do it. The caution I would offer is it's going to be very difficult when the next applicant comes in and says, hey, I have trouble seeing around the cars that are parked in front of my driveway. I'd like to eliminate a couple of parking spaces on either side of the driveway. And that's, I think, what the city attorney and I have been talking about in the previous meetings is really about that consistency. So I think that's pretty much all I. Although I will say, Mr. Bragdon had a wonderful idea. If we want to extend paid parking up there, I think that's a great idea. But that's just me. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, questions? Yes. Counselor.
I guess I'm just curious if we've taken a look at the overall safety issue in that area. I know that it sounds like we have another item on our agenda that's also talking about that same area.
So,
And
yeah.
so I'm just kind of like taking a step back from one specific property. Can we look at that area?
The next item on the agenda is talking about crosswalks specifically, and I have some information to share with you about that. I think there are some improvements that we could make to the crosswalk specifically, but that I don't know how much that relates to the driveway concern.
Yeah.
I think I'm just kind of looking at it. It looks like we have several businesses that are concerned about safety in that area for driving reasons. We have other people that are concerned about walking safety in that area. And so looking at that, when we put those things together, is there a different approach that is not just the sidewalks and not just one driveway, but just looking at the overall roadway safety
Yeah.
in that area?
I think they're two unique problems, two unique situations, and probably have different ways of addressing them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I do find the extending the parking meters up a little bit intriguing. But one thing I don't want to come out of here tonight is just accepting as this informational. I don't want to kick the can down the road anymore on this particular one. I realize that, sometimes we run up against, well, what will the next person might say? Well, if all the years I've been on the council, if we did that, nothing would get done. If we're always worried about the next scenario, we'd just sit here and we can't do that because we're nervous about what might happen. So this council has the authority to make those changes. State wants to come in and complain, they can. Somebody else wants to complain, they can. We have the authority to make those changes, and I think before we leave tonight, we need to come to a consensus of what change we're going to make, because doing nothing is just not acceptable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheryl's up next.
Oh, I have a question for you. Don't go anywhere. So kind of to piggyback off Counselor Tobin's question, it sounds like there's nothing preventing us from changing the length of our parking from driveways at all throughout the city,
No.
correct?
No.
Because to Counselor Tobin's point, we have a couple of items close to Court Street with similar safety concerns. We just also had HCS here not too long ago about their driveway. And I drive a small little hatchback, so I understand being small and low to the ground and trying to edge out in between, two very high, either SUVs or trucks. So I'm just like, why can't we just review that and change the lengths of all that? I know it cuts through into our parking, but I think safety should come over be put
Yeah,
over parking.
There is, Counselor, nothing that would prevent you from changing that. The rules that would be applicable here, within the parking code, there's a general prohibition section that lists all the areas that you're just not allowed to park. In front of a fire hydrant, within 30 feet of an intersection, there's a whole list of them. Including in that list is the language is in front of or close proximity to a private driveway. It's not defined as a specific distance. We've kind of suggested, and we've sort of internally adopted the policy of interpreting that to mean 5 feet. The last time this was in front of the council, we looked at a bunch of different communities that had that kind of similar language and what they used and which ones had specific distances. And the range was basically 2 feet to 5 feet for the communities that we could find that specified a distance. That was the range. So we thought 5 feet was a reasonable approach. But there's nothing magic about 5 feet. You could say that that's 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. We looked at different options last time.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Belair. Thank you for your patience.
Cheryl Belair, 82 Court Street. I want to thank the committee for hearing us once again. I did hear a question, which is, or a statement, how do we differentiate between other driveways? I would say there are 2 points to that. The first point is that we are a business, and in both cases, including Mr. Alexander, we're both running businesses. Just north of us is all residential. I also would say that we are sort of at the bottom of the hill of Court Street, so I believe we have 2 problems with that. One of which is speed, and I don't know how you would. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to confirm what the average speed is when you get to just before 82 Court Street, but speed picks up. I mean, I drive that every day. I certainly know my speed picks up, and I'm really careful because anybody could be coming out of my driveway and it's going to be an accident. So I think speed does play a part. The fact that we're on the downward slope, I think, increases the difficulty of seeing cars from the north coming south. So I just wanted to address that. And again, thank you for stating that this is a safety concern of ours. It's not about the parking for us. The fact that people are parking in front of our building doesn't matter at all. We have a parking lot. We have plenty of space for our staffs and those clients that are coming to see us. But when anyone is leaving and they're taking their life in their own hands by doing that, that's a real concern. And I just want to reiterate that it has nothing to do with parking per se. It has to do with the fact that it's really, really dangerous. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for either of the petitioners, and if Mr. Alexander would like to weigh in on this as well, I think that would be appropriate. If we would extending the parking meters up here, would you leave tonight thinking that was enough that the committee had done? Like, is that or at least a good first step? Because I think there's general agreement that that is kind of the safest step for us.
I think it would help. I mean, obviously, if you put the parking meters there, people can continue to park, you know, front to back, and you still can't see. On the other hand, we're covered with parking, and further down the street where there are parking meters, there's no people parking. So I don't want to say something I don't truly believe. I do think that the people that park there and work downtown and walk down are much more prevalent and are there more often than somebody who's going to park there for an hour to go next door to Nate's or to come into our office. But so the answer is I think so, but I can't scientifically prove that.
Thank you.
Back to you.
I'll just quickly input that.
Again, your name for
my-
the minute taker.
Oh, sorry.
Got to say your name for the.
Oh, Nathan Alexander, 81 Court Street. Thank you. Specifically speaking on behalf of J.C. Russell, Aloha Yoga, 83 Court Street, he did ask me today to mention that he is not in support of extending parking meters. So just let's note that for the record. As it pertains to me and exactly what Cheryl said a minute ago with regard to it really is a safety issue. Any vehicle that is parked, metered or not, so close to our driveway that you really can never see over it, especially if it's a truck, that you're really not able to see around it. The only answer is to creep into traffic. And speaking on behalf of so many of the senior citizens that do visit our building, the only thing that's going to help is a metered parking space that has nobody in it, which doesn't benefit the city from a revenue perspective, and it's not really a useful space if it's an empty space, right? So my suggestion as it pertains to 81 Court Street is that would not necessarily be a great solution. Rather, I think to Don's point earlier would be, is 5 feet enough? With today's SUVs and trucks and everything, is 5 feet enough given where we are and the nature and frequency of accidents that we've seen? If 5 feet isn't enough, what is? And maybe at 81 Court, where we also have low fruit trees, and everybody's invited to pull out of my building and take a look. They're nice and pruned right now. 5 feet may not be great on our side. Maybe 5 feet is appropriate on a different side. This is a hard issue. We're simply just here representing just the accident frequency, and that's the driving factor. Thanks.
Thank you. City manager.
One of the things that the Public Works Director mentioned in his comments is that we haven't done a recent speed study on this street, and so that might be a good next step. And in addition to that, there was a lot of work done the last time this issue was discussed regarding the distance and what did that mean in terms of the configuration of parking. I think it might be challenging to add meters that far up because we do have a lot of downtown employees who are looking for long-term free parking opportunities, and so that might create another issue. And so I wonder if we might be able to put this on more time and then come back and sort of refresh the committee with the configuration of parking with different lengths of distances between driveways.
Thank you. Yep.
I think this might be a question for the city engineer, but also maybe just a statement to also kind of consider like the option of putting like compact cars only to park in certain spots. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director. There's a couple of issues with that. I don't know how that would be enforced, would be my first concern. I think we could limit that to compact cars only. I think it would be very difficult from a logistical, operational perspective. Like, I'm just thinking, if I'm a visitor to the city, I think you would have to have a sign at each one of those driveways on both sides that say compact vehicle parking only. Otherwise, I don't know how somebody coming to the city would know that that space is for compact vehicles only.
Good thought, but it sounds discriminatory to someone who drives a truck.
Get a smaller car.
No, there are larger trucks also. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor.
Jay Kahn, Mayor. I just want to offer some support to those on Court Street that have a commercial business, a commercial driveway, whether that's for-profit or not-for-profit. I think you've got the evidence of a number of comings and goings that the 82 Court Street has provided. I think the others ought to be asked to provide comparable information. But I don't have a solution. I'm glad to hear the committee's willing to entertain some solutions. I do believe that safety needs to outweigh precedent, and I look forward to what can come back from city staff. I think it's important to do this. I travel up and down Court Street anywhere between 2 and 6 times a day. The number of times, I'm pretty cautious, I've heard the testimony, but the number of times I see people inching out, I think that phenomena is very common. And every time that happens, somebody is putting themselves at risk and is saying, there is an at-risk situation I cannot visibly see and safely operate my vehicle in this particular situation. So I think there's plenty of evidence for us to take this under consideration, and I appreciate the committee asking for that from the manager and Public Works.
Thank you. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I just have a question for the city manager and maybe the Public Works Director, or some combination thereof. If we have a motion of placing this on more time with a staff update at our May meeting, what are the details of that update?
So I would envision us returning with the work that had been completed last year in regard to configuration of parking on Court Street, if the distance would change between driveway and parking spaces. There was a pretty thorough analysis done of that last year, so that would be a start. And then I think this idea of looking at commercial property versus residential property is something that we could look at a little bit more closely up and down the street as well.
I think that there's a bunch of creative people that could put their heads together to make this work. So I would be supportive of more time. Yes.
Yeah, I have no problem putting out a more time for one cycle. I don't want to accept it as informational, which just means what size trash can are we going to put it in. I don't think it's a speed issue. I think it's just too busy. And I drive down Court Street all the time, and I'm not speeding, and the mayor's right. Cars are inching out from the left, you look left, you can right. It just happens quick. My personal opinion is we could take this individual request and just approve just expanding the amount of space between the driveways. However, I am willing to give it 30 days and come back, but in 30 days, I fully expect we do something about this. I don't want to kick this can down the road anymore. It's like, typical politicians that we just can't quite come to a solution with something because it's too complicated. It's not that complicated. I'm not afraid if we step on somebody's toes and add a couple of feet, somebody down the road gets a little bit jealous, they can come in next week and ask for a request. But at some point, we had to do something. So I'm fine with 30 days, but no longer.
Yes, sir.
George Bennett, I'd just
Up
like
here.
to weigh in.
Yep.
Microphone.
Microphone.
On the,
Got to get you on camera.
well, I think, I just got back from Florida, and they're installing speed bumps. Would that be an option on Court Street to slow people down? And not only in Court Street, but throughout the city. Arch Street in particular, speed limit's 30, people are cruising by at 50, 60 miles an hour. So I just thought I'd weigh in on that, if that would be an option moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I know what Public Works will say about snow plowing and speed bumps. But put it in the conversation, because I do think that we are aiming towards more time, so staff, and definitely please outreach to all the interested parties to get their input. Yep. Laura, thanks.
I would support more time. One thing that I would just kind of hope that would be considered is how speed, so I feel like there are some similarities in this situation and Water Street in that people coming and going to downtown, it's not so much that they may not be going over the speed limit, but they're escalating or they haven't started de-escalating. And so the number of times that I try to cross that intersect, I mean, I just kind of won't for the most part, but people rarely stop when I'm at the crosswalk, and I think they're just going too fast to be able to stop. So I'm hoping that we can sort of consider that maybe that entire stretch of road, whether a stop sign at a different place could impact the speed at that intersection and actually help slow people down.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Counselor?
Move to place this item on more time with a staff update by our May meeting.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Anything from the public, committee? Seeing none, all in favor? That would be unanimous, and I thank you. Next item on the agenda is from Ian Matheson regarding Court Street pedestrian safety risks. I am told Mr. Matheson is not able to attend, so it would be appropriate to place the matter on more time to allow him that opportunity. Yep.
I move to place the communication from Ian Matheson on more time to allow the petitioner to attend.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Anything further? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We have communication from Adam Tepfer, a request to add audio and data cables as part of the downtown infrastructure project. Is the letter writer present? Is the letter writer present?
He can't make it. He's going to ask that it be put on the next round.
Again?
He can't make it, but he's going to come back to you and ask that to talk in front of you the next time.
I was going to suggest the very same thing. Thank you. So to allow him the opportunity to be with us, who's up? You.
Move to put the issue on more time.
Second.
Anything further? All in favor? That would be unanimous. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, we have a proposal to add necessary infrastructure to accommodate banners across Main Street. See, we have our Public Works Director.
Nope, wrong one. Bear with me just a minute, Mr. Chair. Crosswalks, banners. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, your Public Works Director. So we were talking about this last month, as you recall, and the committee had asked us to look into a few different questions that you had and come back with some more information. So that's my goal here tonight. So the first thing I wanted to show you, if I can figure out how to make this move. Is this a touch screen? No. There we go. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to show you are some renderings that we had our consultant Stantec prepare. So that's option one is a rendering of what a standalone banner might look like. So this rendering is taken from the perspective basically of a vehicle that's headed north and is just short of Emerald Street. So you can see on the left-hand side of the image the little median strip where the turn lane is for turning onto Emerald Street. So that's where you're standing. And that is a rendering that's drawn to scale. And I wanted to show you this just to kind of get a sense of what that would look like aesthetically. This version they prepared, it's a 4-foot by 35-foot banner. It's centered on both lanes of the roadway. So rather than just being over the north side, it's centered over that median. Personally, I think that this option looks a little bit better with it just over the northbound lane. It's not shown in this image, but of course, you could also have a third pole on the west side of Court Street, or excuse me, Main Street, and have one banner for the northbound traffic, one banner for the southbound traffic. Or you could have, banners both facing south, what have you, but you could do it over both sections of roadway. The other thing I'll note in this image, I labeled that the banners, or not just banners, but any overhead obstruction on a roadway, the typical requirement is 16 feet of clearance over the roadway. DOT and Federal Highway will allow exceptions to go down to something like 14 feet, but that would be an exception. The typical and the expected standard would be a 16-foot clearance. And I bring that up because of the next image. You had asked me to look at the possibility of attaching it to the buildings on either side of the roadway rather than having those large poles in the public sphere. So what I'm showing here, the block from the Works at the south end to Good Fortune at the north end, that building is just a hair under 16 feet above the sidewalk. So that, obviously, even if we push the banner all the way to the top, that banner is going to be well below the elevation that it needs to be to provide clearance over the roadway. So where the applicants or the requesters suggested that the banner go, at Emerald Street, attaching it to the buildings doesn't seem like a viable option. I guess it would be technically possible to do some sort of like pole or outrigger on the building to hold it, but that would definitely make the engineering a lot more complicated and cumbersome. So I don't know if I love that idea. If you go to the next building north, you see Edwards Jones there. Across the street from this would be the Miller Brothers, former Miller Brothers building. That building does have enough height on both sides of the street that you could conceivably have a banner connected between the two buildings. So, option 3, excuse me, at that location from Edward Jones to the Miller Brothers building, that's about 135-foot total span distance. At that distance, the banner, because it's not a straight line, right? There's going to be a little drape in that wire. It would actually be sagging about 16 to 18 inches, so pretty noticeable. Excuse me, I've got a terrible cough. So I will say, technically feasible, yes. I really don't love this option, and mostly because I'm trying to foresee like the agreement that we would have to have with a private property owner to allow them to attach its infrastructure to their building. If a windstorm pulls that anchor out of their building and breaks a bunch of bricks, how do we fix that? I just see a lot of operational challenges with that approach. But that was something that you asked us to look into, and I would say it is a technically feasible option at that next block north. The last thing here is looking at the same kind of situation on West Street. West Street, as you approach Main, the buildings are a lot taller, obviously. Also, they're closer together, so there's about a 55 to 60 foot span, depending on which buildings you end up attaching to. At that span, the sag in that wire goes down to something in the order of like 4 to 6 inches. So it's a lot less of a sag that you'd see. So if the committee's preferred approach is to attach it to a building, I do think we should consider Fitz location rather than the Main Street location as being a little simpler to do. And the last question, I think it was Councilor Tobin wanted to talk about the policy and how we would actually operate this thing. So city staff has gotten together, and these are sort of our bullet point suggestions for how we would recommend this be implemented. The first thing is we're recommending that this only be made available to specifically community-funded events. Those are the 10 events that receive city funds through the budget process every year. And also, of course, a city official communications, city messaging. The reason we're recommending those community-funded events, there's 10 of those events annually. That allows each event to have, depending on the potential for overlap and when those events are happening, we could have each event would have a display time of 30 days. And there would be some overlap. Not everybody would be able to get the full 30 days and accommodate all of 10 of those events, but generally we'd be able to do up to 30 days. By making it available only to those community-funded events, it also allows us to have much more control over the content and the purpose, right? So we want this to be something that's advertising the city as a place to come and participate in activities. We want to draw people into those activities. Councilor Filio, I think, mentioned last month that he saw an event advertised in Concord, and that's what brought him to Concord. That's exactly what the purpose of this thing is supposed to do. So I think the community-funded events works well for getting that target. If we do that, we would make the application simply a checkbox on the community-funded event application package that goes into the city clerk's office. So it would be very easy for them to implement. The event organizers would simply ask for a reservation of that space as part of their license application for that event. Along with that, we would suggest that there not be a fee for them to use it. If the city's already funding the use of the city's facilities and providing funding for the event, it seems counterproductive to then turn around and charge them a fee to put up the banner. That said, they would be responsible for the production of the actual banner according to city specs. Installation of the banner, because as we talked about, it would have to be somebody who's qualified with the right equipment, basically a bucket truck and a traffic control detail, to divert traffic around the bucket truck while it's putting up this banner. We would want that to be a qualified, licensed, and insured installer. The banners would be installed, like I said, up to 30 days, subject to availability. We would also have a requirement, or suggest a requirement, that they be removed within 3 days of the event. So we don't want them to, just leave them up there for 3 weeks and advertising an event that's already gone by. And then I would say, to give that a little teeth, we would include a cost recovery provision in their licensing agreement that says if you don't remove it in a timely manner, or if the banner fails and the city has to remove it, we're going to charge you to actually go and do that for you. So that would be kind of the basic guidelines, basic outline of what staff is suggesting we do in terms of operation. And I hope that answered all of your questions. I'd be happy to entertain any others.
Just the question that everybody always asks is, if we did the poles, because the buildings are obviously a little too low, what's the cost?
So I think I mentioned last time the cost of the equipment, the system to do it, would be about $25,000. That assumes 2 poles and the pulleys and all the hardware to hang it.
Okay.
I didn't get a quote on a 3-pole, buy two banner system, but probably 1.5 times that. The installed cost, I'd estimate about $50,000, basically doubling the materials.
Okay, just to follow up, if we were to do the poles and go all the way across Main Street, and you mentioned that some of these events overlap, could we do one banner one side, one banner the other side, since the dates are overlapping, and just put two smaller banners up at the same time?
So you could do like one banner that shared the space, that 35-foot space, but the system is engineered for the wind load on a 35-foot by 4-foot sail, basically. So having two 35-foot sails would be more force than that pole was designed to accommodate. But yeah, we did talk about, the city clerk and I talked about, those overlapping events could share the cost of producing the banner and each take half of it.
Or one could say one event on one side, one could say one event on the other side?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just clarify what I think you were saying. We could have three poles, two 16-foot banners. Right.
Yeah, I think we could design it to have 3 poles and 2 35-foot banners. They would be larger poles, bigger bases, and they'd have to be designed for the extra weight. But they'd have, if that was what was the design criteria, we could do that.
So obviously, the poles are permanent.
Absolutely.
Does the cable have to be there?
So there's guy cables, there's guy wires that connect the poles, top and bottom of the banner. Those stay there permanently. And then there's basically a pulley system that pulls the banner across the roadway and then it pulls it back when it's removed. But those cables, top and bottom, that the banner clips onto, stay there all the time.
Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. I have a number of traffic-related questions. I don't know when the best time to ask each one of them is. For this one, I have a question about what the actual installation of the banner for an individual event, right? You have somebody up in the kind of cherry picker bucket doing it. What does that look like in terms of any possible traffic disruption on Main Street while that's happening?
So one lane of Main Street would be closed while that truck was parked within it. We would want some sort of traffic control detail. I think most communities require a police officer with a cruiser, to make sure that it's visible, basically to divert the traffic around that bucket truck. But that's what that would look like.
Could do it 2 o'clock in the morning, too.
Sure.
No one out.
Yeah, we can definitely control the times that it does, that happens. I don't think it even needs to be 2 o'clock in the morning. Generally, downtown before 8 a.m. is pretty quiet. And it would not be a very long event. It's less than an hour to put this thing up, probably about a half an hour.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Laura? Yeah.
I do have some concerns about the visibility if we were talking about a pole, in terms of cars pulling out, pedestrians walking. I think that we're talking about near one of the crosswalks, and I know that we put a lot of thought into that, so I would be concerned about that. I think what you were referencing about sort of the plan that I had asked about the last time is I would just really like to, if it's going to be relying on these festivals to create a banner and to pay for that, I would want to make sure that I'm hearing from some of them, knowing that they're willing, that that's what they want, because if they don't want to pay for that, even if downtown businesses would love to have it there, if we're limiting it to downtown business, or to the festivals, it would just end up being unused if no one's buying a banner. So,
Good point, yeah. Counselor?
Oh, I'm going to be Debbie the Downer. Initially I supported this. It sounded like a great idea. I always want to support events in town. But the more I learn about it, particularly cost, I think it's just horrible timing. It's not a necessity. And it's bad timing because of the cost associated with our downtown infrastructure project. It literally goes against all our reasoning and logic that we use to make our decisions for the final design phase. We were reducing our decisions based off of cost, and now we're gonna say, let's add this $75,000 thing, that's banner, poles that are not necessities. We have good attendance at our events now, so the marketing seems to work. So I'm really struggling with the timing of this. I appreciate Mr. Pip and Mr. McGreer bringing it forward. The timing just doesn't seem right to me.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I don't totally disagree. I would like to see maybe some, fundraising be done on this and see what happens, so it wouldn't be all just based on tax dollars. But I think the idea is doable, and I don't think we should kill it here tonight. I think, like I said, I think if we sit here in the positive and say we can do this, we can do this. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit more than just tax dollars. I understand that, but I think the request is viable, and I think the staff and downtown merchants ought to get together and talk about it. I know Mr. Pip and Ted, and let's see if this is a viable request.
Counselor?
Thank you. I have a question actually I see Mr. Pip here, and so I have a question for him because we haven't previously talked, at least in this space, in the committee space, about the banner on West Street idea. And I would be interested to hear Mr. Pip's thoughts on that, if that's a potential option here.
Hi, Tim Pitt from Bees Tees. I'm going to be funny here and say I like the idea of a second banner on West Street. No, I saw that. I like the idea. I think, I think more people are coming from Main Street than they are West Street, so that's my response to that. But I think obviously is a better area for it. It's obviously a smaller banner. It's it's out of the way, all that. But I do want to go off of Councilor Workman. So you say attendance at events is great. It's really not. If you've ever been a part of or organized an event, it's very difficult to get the word out. There's very little money in events in town. Most people are helping organize events just to break even, just to have an event in town or raise money for a nonprofit. If you look at events in Manchester, Concord, Portsmouth, Brattleboro, they've got really good events. And I'm not saying that we don't, but they've got that bigger potential to have better events. Councilor Filiot actually talked about it last time, about how they were driving to Concord and saw a sign for an event. And I don't know about you, but I've done the same thing. You see like a harvest festival and you're like, all right, let's stop. So that's really the point. And I also think that this is the perfect timing. That's why I wrote the letter when I did, was we're talking about the infrastructure of downtown. You've already got a hole in the ground. Now you just got to throw a pole and some cement in it, if you will. We're not digging a new hole. We're putting the hole is going to be dug already in a sense. So, I think it's kind of perfect timing to talk about it, better than in 5 or 10 years we have to dig a new hole. And I think I suggested early on that I think it is a fundraising event. I don't know that this is a full-on taxpayer thing. I think this could be a downtown group thing, or a Chamber of Commerce thing, or a group of us for Tim Pip's poll fundraiser. So that's my thing.
Thank you. Well, personally, I think that the idea of 3 polls should be explored. And there's another option to this. It could be an ad alternate to the downtown project. If the budget comes in okay, we can add it. If it doesn't come in okay, we're going to be looking to cut a lot of stuff, and it's not going to happen. But that way, at least we'll get real numbers on what it might cost. So, my thought.
But like Mr. Pip just said, he thinks it would work if we could do, maybe not tax dollars, but a fundraiser, a downtown event, a community event. So I think it's something, I can see this going on more time already, but I think this is something that can be definitely explored. And I think we can make this work. And once again, I think sometimes elected officials will look at reasons why we can't do something, and I want to look at reasons why we can do something.
Counselor?
Thank you. Again, we're saying, well, let's fundraise the money. Why are we talking about this now when there's no money fundraised? I think we really need to bring it back when we know that there's people who are investing in it and that it's a realistic ask. As Councilor Tobin said, we haven't heard from the festivals directly that they want this, and no one's coming forward saying, I'm going to pay for it.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? And we'll, oh. Good evening.
Good evening. Rick Wood, Fire Marshal and Building Official. I just wanted to, I don't know if the options about attaching to the building are off the table, but I just wanted to throw one more thing in your purview, that it isn't as simple as we may think. The buildings we're looking at are generally unreinforced masonry buildings that are very old with different blemishes of their own. And it would be a challenge to affix some of the stuff for those types of loading for pull loads. So just be aware of that. It might be more complicated if you decide that's the option you're thinking of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good point.
More time. There we go.
Okay, committee.
Your turn. Need more time.
Yeah.
So if I'm being honest, I would like to accept this as informational. If everyone is on board with putting it on more time, we can do that, but I'm,
Realizing that informational is a no, basically.
I think it would be, for me, it would be a no for right now. So, and we can put it on more time, but that's just, I feel like I haven't heard from anyone who wants to pay for a part of it. And I expected that maybe the next time we discuss this, when I brought it up, that I would hear from people tonight saying, yes, I have a festival and I want to pay for one of these banners that will go, so please put these poles in, please put the infrastructure in so that I can buy this banner and hang it up. But I'm not hearing anyone who actually wants to buy a banner right now.
Okay, one more. Okay, and you can make the motion, but just to point out that if this does go informational and council goes the same way, it's dead for the year. More time would bring more information. I hate more time. You know, just to tell you.
We're on a
that.
roll tonight.
Just as a concept, say yes, say no, say something. But you have raised a couple of really good questions about who's going to do what. I'd like to see some harder numbers about the cost. And, you know, if there's not interest in paying for the banners, we're just putting up 2 or 3 poles for no reason.
Right.
So I'm leaning towards the more time.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't want to steer you, you know, if you want.
No, I agree with Councilor Greenwald about more time. And in all fairness to Tim and some of the downtown merchants, the reason nobody's here saying we'll do this, we'll do that, because we haven't even said that we would allow it yet. I mean, who's going to come in and give a presentation when this committee hasn't even made up its own mind yet? Tonight, we make up kind of our own mind. We say put it on more time, let staff and the petitioners get together, and in 30 days, if nothing gets created, then away it goes. But all we're saying is let's give it 30 days and let's see if we can make it work.
Yeah, Counselor?
I'm on a roll tonight. Again, earlier on in our packet, we did have a communication that was signed by multiple people that represent multiple different festivals and events that take place here in Keene. So I really feel like we've had it on more time. We've reviewed it. If those people were going to come forward, they would have come forward by now. So I don't know. I think we're spinning our wheels here.
Yeah, Jacob.
I don't hate more time. I do think that depending on if the more time motion is made, then I will say this, and I have some additional questions specifically around traffic and pedestrian safety on Main Street with this that I would like addressed in a future report out from staff on this. I do want to be clear that we have seen this. This is the 3rd time that this is coming onto our agenda. I don't want to kind of say no and kill this for the year, because I do think there are still some conversations to be had. I hadn't previously considered the West Street idea, and I would like some more time to think about that. But either way, I don't think this is ready to move out of this committee at this point forward. So it's either more time or informational.
Just to follow on what you're saying with West Street, there's also the potential of Church Street, Lamson Street, pick any street coming in and out. But, let's start with the first one. Do we want to have this at all? And it doesn't sound like there's a consensus of yes or no, which is kind of the definition of more time.
One more comment.
Yeah.
And I brought this up last time, that in my first term on city council 30 years ago, had this little company from California come up and ask if we wanted to do a movie. And kind of started off like this. And at that time, there's a couple of councils who said, no, there's no way we can do it. But we said, let's take a look. Let's move forward a little bit. And I actually, the city clerk went to the archives and got it for me. After we said, yeah, let's do this, Dow Griff, the site manager, came back with a list of requests, 3 pages long, a city had to do. And I'm concerned if this had happened to this council, we would have just said no. No, way too much. 3 pages of requests, there's no way we're going to do it. And I don't think it would have been done. But the council 30 years ago actually had the backbone to look at it and say, we think we can do this. And now 30 years later, we're celebrating it again. So once again, let's not say why we can't, let's say why we can. And more time is more than a fair agreement here tonight.
Your turn for a motion, now that you've been beat on.
Move to put the proposal to add the necessary infrastructure to accommodate banners across Main Street or another street on more time.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded in committee, yep.
Just to kind of, this is where I want to get the other traffic pieces in. So one of the things that strikes me, and I understand this is a consultant rendering, but one of the things that struck me in the first slide was that you have the banner up, it's taken from the viewpoint of a car, you have a pedestrian in the crosswalk on that slide, and I don't think that this, I think this is, I think the art imitates life in this particular scenario. And so one thing that I'd be interested in hearing from city staff, and maybe it's the city engineer, maybe it's the public works director, maybe it's some combination of, is given that our Main Street and I walked to this meeting tonight and there are 7, 8 crosswalks across Main Street. I don't know that, I have a safety concern on Main Street around creating a distraction or a potential distraction for drivers in an area where there are a lot of people crossing frequently. And so I would like to kind of hear that addressed. I also don't know at this point if I understand if the cost stays the same. And I think it's important for the city to know this. I think it's also important for any groups that might be wanting to do fundraising. Does the cost stay the same if the banner goes across West Street and it's a little bit of a different footprint in that way or not? And I don't know enough about structural engineering to know the answer to that. And so those are some specific items. I will vote to place this on more time, but I would like answers to those next time. Thank you.
Okay, and hopefully city staff has all these questions to be ready to get answers. Anything from the public? Yep.
I just want to be clear on what you guys want for next meeting, because I
Tim
was,
Pip?
Tim Pip, BCs. I was unaware that you wanted me to bring people from events. I've talked to a number of them, and they were all in support of it, and I didn't realize that we needed to bring people to something that wasn't anything yet. So, you don't normally go out and fundraise for a pole that doesn't exist or can't be put up. So that's why we didn't start a fundraising effort. This was merely an email that got sent. I didn't even want to stand here. I have to. So honestly, so next time, because apparently it's going to go on more time, you want me to bring a bunch of people that are going to say that they're going to buy a $1,500, $1,200 banner? Sure. Is that what we're asking?
Anything that you could do to help sell it. But I would tell you that your issue has moved miles ahead in a positive way. So, bring answers to questions, work with city staff about what needs.
I didn't realize I needed to do that tonight.
No, that's
So,
fine,
yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, because when they send an email or call you that there's going to be a meeting, they don't tell you anything. They just say that, your meeting's on Wednesday, and I ask what's going on, and then you don't get any information. So it's just hard to prepare for a meeting. You don't know what the meeting's about.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
But you're doing good. It's all good. Okay, anything further? Committee, public, all in favor of more time? We have 4, and we have 1 opposed. Okay, so this goes on more time. Our next meeting in May, we will take this up and we will make a decision. Okay, next on the agenda, verbal update from the Public Works Director regarding the downtown infrastructure project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director. With you tonight for your monthly update on the downtown project. So, some news to share. During the last month, I'm sure many of you saw the drill rigs operating on Main Street. The geotechnical borings and test pits were completed. And the bottom line is that we really didn't find anything surprising or unexpected. Nothing that's going to change design parameters for the structures or anything like that. So that was a good result. The other thing I wanted to mention, our project ombudsman position that we've talked about as being sort of that liaison between the business and residents within the affected neighborhoods. We've advertised that position. In the last 2 weeks, we've interviewed 3 candidates, and right now we're going through the process of checking references and what have you. We expect to be recommending the city manager extend an offer to one of the candidates that we interviewed, within the next couple weeks for sure. So, my hope is that that candidate will start in early June. So during your June MSFI meeting, we're hoping to bring them here, introduce them, and let you get to know who that's going to be. Okay, sidewalk cafes. So you may have seen last week at the city council meeting, there was a withdrawal of the ordinance that the city clerk's office had put forward. And basically, having talked through this, we kind of decided is that rather than having an ordinance that just said you can't have cafes during the construction period, instead we're going to manage it through additional restrictions and conditions that are going to be part of the sidewalk cafe licenses during the construction timeframe. So on the 7th of April, we hosted a meeting. We invited all of the current licensees to come to it, and a few of them were able to join us. During that, I kind of rolled out a set of proposed conditions that we think we can add to their licenses, and if they can live with that, we can live with that in terms of managing the construction. So the recommendations or conditions that I'm proposing, the first is that there's no sidewalk cafes or sidewalk commerce within what we're calling the active construction zone. So each year there's a phase. So for the first year, 2026, it's going to be Central Square and Main Street to the Lamson Church Street area. That's all one phase. But within that phase, the work's going to be broken up into sub-phases, if you will. And they're going to be working on, let's say, the east side of Central Square for the next 2 weeks. And then they're going to move to the north side of Central Square and what have you. Each one of those sub-phases, we've coined the term active construction area. Within that active construction area, you won't be able to have your sidewalk cafe in operation. But if you're outside of that active construction area, you can operate according to your existing license footprint. With that, the city would reserve the right to modify the licensed footprint. So as construction progresses and conditions change, there's a new landscape island here, so we've got to scooch this corner or cut off this area of your sidewalk cafe. Those modifications will be kind of adjusted on the fly as the construction progresses. The city will agree to notify the licensees at least 7 days before the contractor is going to move from one area to another. So the licensees will have at least a week ahead of time to know, okay, starting a week from Monday, you're not going to be able to have your license. You're going to have to move your furniture out of the way. Licensees will have to remove their furnishings by 6 a.m. on the day that we start construction in that new area. All of the normal operating conditions that are already part of the license, those are also, of course, going to continue to be in there. And we're adding one more, which is basically, in the event of unforeseen circumstances, some sort of emergency, we're kind of reserving the right to say, hey, we've got to shut you down starting right now, and I'm sorry, but we've got to just move this out because it's unsafe, or the water main underneath your patio is just blew, something like this. So that's a unforeseen circumstance clause. So we shared those suggested conditions with a few of the license holders that came. And I would say, generally speaking, there wasn't a lot of objection to those conditions. I think generally people agreed with that. The next step in this process, we're drafting the actual license language, and we're going to send a draft license to all of the current license holders so they can see exactly what we expect it to look like next year when we license their sidewalk cafes. But during that meeting, during that conversation, one item did come up, and there was a concern raised about one of the design features that we've talked about in the past is that the sidewalk commerce zone that we've talked about is going to be up against the building face throughout the project. And the goal was to create ideally at least 10-foot sidewalk commerce zone for all of the business fronts downtown. We're not able to get that 100% of the time in all locations, but we are pretty close, and certainly much more consistent than we're able to accommodate today. So that's a feature that's included in the design. It was shown in the different design iterations. But some concerns were raised about that. I would kind of summarize the concerns. I think there's some licensees here tonight that'll probably want to talk about their concerns, but my summary is loss of space compared to existing conditions, the risk of somebody seated against a plate glass being able to break that glass and that being a safety concern, and a loss of privacy between diners on the inside of the storefront and diners on the outside of the storefront, basically being in close proximity and being able to stare at each other and whatnot. So to help kind of flesh out this concern, I asked Stantec to provide some example layouts of different areas of the sidewalk cafes. And I do want to stress that these are just examples. We're not restaurant designers. There's 1,000 ways to arrange these patios. I just asked Stantec to try to come up with some reasonable layouts that may be able to work. So that's what they did. So here's one for the west side of Central Square. And you can see on the left side of the screen here is the Fritz's location. Today, Fritz has 3 picnic tables. They're in front of their own storefront, plus in front of the Chamber of Commerce. My understanding is that the Chamber of Commerce allows them to have that space in front of their building. That's not to say that the Chamber is always going to be there or they're always going to want to grant that permission, but we are showing that, assuming that that understanding continues. So you see there, hopefully I can point here. Can you see the, I don't think you can. Oh wait, I can. There we go. I know what to do. Laser pointer. All right. So in this area here, you'll see 2, 4-person tables basically in front of the ramp for the Chamber of Commerce. And then we're showing 2 6-person tables in front of Fritz's. And then we show the fenced-in area that sort of delineates the area where alcoholic beverages are served for the poorhouse. And you'll see here, of course, we have to keep openings for the different access to the different occupancies to that building. But we do accommodate a 2-person table here. There's a bench or a bar top that would accommodate, I think they calculated up to 8 seats here. a 6-person table, a couple of 4-person tables, and then again, another bar top that would accommodate, in this area, I think they calculated 15 people. So comparing this to existing conditions, honestly, I don't know Fritz's tables, if they're 6-person or 8-person picnic tables. So I'm not exactly sure of their licensed number of diners, but it's between 18 and 24 with their 3 tables. In the proposed conditions, we can accommodate 20. And again, that's one potential layout, not the only one. For the poorhouse, their existing license includes 32 seated diners and 18 patrons at the bar stools, bar tops. The proposed condition is for 20 table diners and 23 patrons at the bar top. So more bar top, less tables there. We also looked in, and I believe the Bennecks are here, we looked at the north side of Central Square. On the left-hand side, you'll see this is the Life is Sweet patio. In their existing license, they have 15 tables plus 2 small benches. In the proposed condition that Stantec laid out here, within that 10-foot sidewalk commerce zone, we can accommodate, I think, 16 seated positions plus the 2 benches. So they would actually get an additional seat. And then for the stage, the existing is 32 seated table positions, and the proposed is also 32. I will say they're using pretty small 4-person tables. We're using, the 4-person tables that we're using are 48 by 30, so they think they're actually larger than the tables that they're having now. It may be that with the tables that they use currently, there could be more room than we're showing. But that's what, we just put that as an example again. So I guess the point is that there will be changes for some of the business owners in terms of what their sidewalk commerce zone can accommodate. But generally, it's close to or even in some cases better than the existing conditions. And be outside these 2 areas that we actually laid out, there's going to be a lot of storefronts that have very limited seating now or have no capacity to have outdoor seating that will be able to accommodate that outdoor commerce, outdoor dining, what have you in the future. So on balance, I think it is still a net benefit. So that is my downtown update for this month, and I would love to take any questions.
Okay, just one question quickly. Do we have any more decisions for this committee to be making?
Not at this time, no.
Trash cans or whatnot?
God, no.
benches or- I'm just, that's our job.
Are you craving a debate about trash cans,
Yeah,
Counselor?
really, yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I just have 2 quick questions based on the slides. I know this is probably kind of still in development as you onboard the ombudsman, but we had a little bit of a conversation at the last verbal update that I continued with staff to the side about kind of what the role is going to look like over the summer. One of the reasons that I was comfortable with voting to delay the project by a year was in order to give time for the ombudsman to really start building those relationships earlier on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be answered at this meeting, but I am interested in getting a sense of, pre-construction, what is that relationship building going to look like? I want this person to have something to do over the summer as we bring them on. And then the second piece is just you mentioned the active construction area, and then on the slide I saw active zone. If those 2 are referring to the same thing, I would stress consistency as much as possible there. I think this is going to be a confusing enough time for downtown business owners, and I noticed it, and I'm sure that other folks would as well. So if we can be consistent in those communications, that would be good. But I appreciate the monthly updates as always, and I'm sure that some members of the public tonight have some questions for you as well. So,
Thank you.
You left one thing out of your presentation that I think needs to be mentioned. The outdoor dining, outdoor sales is a privilege. It's a license. It is not a right. So, just kind of keep that in perspective. I think that's important. I think it's great how you're reaching out and you are designing seating, but as you said, it will change, and that's fine. The merchants will figure out what is most advantageous for them, and it will work. We will get through this, all of us. Committee, anything else? Okay. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Members of the public, if you'd like to speak, now is the time.
Dory
evening.
Maston, I own the poorhouse side where Fritz's, Poorhouse, Ann Henderson, and Charlie and Waldo's is, so that stretch of real estate is mine. I just want to touch on a couple things, and then you can beat me up all you want. Back in March, we had a big meeting here, and Mr. Goodell presented all different kinds of ways to change the cityscape for cafes. At that time, we were going to wait till the downtown project was done, and then we were gonna decide where things were going. That was back in March. A recent visit from, a surprise visit from Don Lucier showed me where my patio would go as it is right now. I was very upset over it. I look back into my communications with the city manager. She was in the meeting with the merchants. She did say and ended her email with, "We remain committed to reviewing concerns in good faith. Public Works will assess what the layout will look like at your location once construction is complete." At the meeting, Don Lucier also told us, if we have more concerns, to come to this meeting. At the meeting that we had, if you call it a meeting, where Don Lucier came outside, this is the plan that was on the website. I have one if all of you want one. I'm sure you know it well. You've seen it all too much. It shows 9 tables in front of the stage and 8 tables in front of the poorhouse. It's impossible. When I asked Don, he said that they were simply dropped in there for a visual. It was not to scale. The big problem with that scene is all about all the money that we've paid with our tax dollars to the engineer, but he got new ones made. Tonight, they were new ones up there. I don't know if there's a way to put them back up, but even looking at the ones he gave you tonight, I can point out that those tables can't go there. Common sense will tell you the tables can't go in front of doors. I understand it's a privilege. But like Randy said, instead of saying no right away, try your best to say yes. The only thing stopping those of us, George and I in the tavern, from having our patios just the way they are is the bike lane. Central Square is busy. We're thankful to have successful restaurants and businesses. I'm thankful to have my tenants where they are, but it doesn't work. So in the plan that you had up for George's, it showed tables side by side. So if the tables are side by side, you're giving a single server 3 feet to walk in, if I read that correctly. Don, correct me if I'm wrong. That's not handicap accessible at all. I'm sure George would, and so would I, make any changes that we needed to accommodate a customer. But 2 waitresses or servers passing each other with our trays would be very hard to do. Also, sitting right next to the glass with another customer inside Fritz's window is a pretty awkward dining experience for anybody. You folks know, I would assume you know, but you dine at the stage, you go into Fritz. I don't see you at Poorhouse, but you know it. You know the downtown, you know the layout. Every table, every chair is income for us. It's not for George and I to drive Maseratis. Our money trickles down, and it trickles down to our employees, jobs, and it brings people downtown. Eliminating our patios and our tables is not benefiting anybody. I don't think we're asking for a lot. It's 2 streets. If you can't walk 2 blocks, you probably don't belong on a bicycle. I don't think we're asking a lot. It's 2 streets. And it's 2 where you have a dangerous crosswalk. So if you look at the plan, the bike path that comes off of Central Square crosses a busy street, as we've just heard from prior testimony for Court Street, traffic going really fast. 2 people ahead of us. And you have, you be coming down Court, crossing the sidewalk at the same time the bicycles are going, where they could stop right there and walk it whichever direction they're gonna go in by 1 block. And again, it's doable. It's not, if you just say no, you're not benefiting anybody. It's something to think about. It's not just me. If I sell my building, you get the next guy in. You know, it's doable. And if it's doable and it's gonna benefit the community, why not make the effort? It's not, and if anything, it saves money, because we don't have the bike pass. So that's my spiel.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the committee?
I'm not going to sit down.
That's all right.
George Bennett, Stage Restaurant. I had some concerns about the layout from this in particular map that was given to me, but I see Don had sketched up, there's a new design element that I wasn't aware of. What I would request would be a map of the actual distances that we're going to be working with in terms of, do I have 10 feet? Do I have 10 and a half feet? Where is my allocated sidewalk cafe going to be designated to? So, you know, we have 30-inch tables. We don't have big tables out there. Mostly we put them together, we move them around. There is some concern with the entryways and how many tables we can get between, because we have 2 big 8-foot entryways, so we're losing all of that space that we acquire now, that we pay for with our license. So what I'd like is a better evaluation from you guys or the designer with our tables, with the ones we're going to use on that in particular area that you guys have allocated for us. And if we can get something together, maybe we could work something out with, you know, maybe we can take a little bit more sidewalk space, or I don't know, you know, but that's for Santec to design, you know, and your engineers and designers to accomplish. But that's what I have to say. You know, I do great with my outdoor cafe. I was the first restaurant to have an outdoor table. Patty Little had given us a license, and we put small tables out when we just had the one store. And we were the only ones on Main Street to do that. So we've been in it for a long time. We know things change, but I just like a little more clarity on, and just, you know, actual dimensions where I know where I'm going to be placed and how much areas I'm going to be allocated. That's it.
Thank you. Question to Public Works Director. Do we have the base drawings to a point that Mr. Bennett can?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you, Don Lucia, Public Works Director. What I was going to suggest is we can offer the same, assistance that we provided to the poorhouse, which is to go out to the site and just mark out in white spray paint where that patio would be, you know, that designated area. I do want to point out that what we're calling the sidewalk commerce zone, it's not, you know, a different material. It's not different treatment. It's just part of the sidewalk, right? It's part of the sidewalk. What we're saying is that when a business owner wants to have that outdoor commerce, that this is the area that's designated for it. In Mr. Bennick's case, at the Stage Restaurant, it's the width of his property, 10 feet out from the building. And we can go mark that out and do that. In terms of, laying it out with his specific tables, I would kind of shy away from that, just because, they use one table this year, next year they may change, or a new owner might want to do a different shaped table. And we're not restaurant designers, right? We did this to try to provide the committee with a sense of what the impacts would be. But in no way am I or Stantec qualified to say that this is the optimum layout for your particular restaurant. I'd be happy to provide them with some scale drawings, then they could, cut out shapes and put them on and, play with how they want to lay out their space. But that's really just not within our wheelhouse.
Absolutely.
So.
But I'm sure that George is creative enough that he can cut out little shapes and,
Well, it's not cutting out shape.
of course not.
You
Design the space.
That would help though to see it.
to see exactly where we stand.
We just can't see it on the paper.
Understood.
There's no dimensions or measurements, 10 feet.
Yeah.
You can supply.
Yeah, and we can definitely do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all I asked for.
Good, okay. Anyone else have anything? Oh, no. Oh, hang on.
Dorian
Yes, ma'am.
Aston from Poorhouse, good. When they go out and mark George's patio, it might be helpful to the engineer and also to George to have someone from the fire department go with them, because in the drawings, the tables are in front of our exit doors. And we just want to make sure everybody understands the amount of table space that's being taken away from us by doing this. It's significant. So whenever they do go out, if someone from the fire department can go just to clarify where we're allowed to put the doors, that would be great.
As I understand it, Public Works is going to provide a blank map, basically, a base map, and you guys design your own space, and then you have to run it through code enforcement and fire department to make sure it is safe. That the city is not going to design your outdoor
We don't want to,
patio.
but we need to know where the pictures show that you're looking at this evening. There are tables in front of the doors. So
That's not going to
when-
happen.
Exactly. So we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, because he can't have chairs in front of his double doors, and I can't have one sitting right in front of the apartment door. So
Right.
that's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? City manager.
Yeah, I wanted to briefly mention the March meeting, and I'm not sure if it was in March, but sometime around that time frame where the discussion related to outdoor dining happened. There was a letter that was submitted, and I don't know if it was referred to MSFI or PLD. I'd have to go back and look at the minutes. But it was about the licensing, not the layout. It was more about like the rules for outdoor cafes, and I believe the city clerk.
PLD.
I think it was PLD.
Yep.
And I believe the city clerk at the time said that that was something that they were going to deal with later after the construction was done. But I can certainly pull those minutes.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Yep, Laura. Oh, you too?
I just wanted to say that I can appreciate how challenging a lot of this will be. And also, I think the reason the decision to postpone the project for a year was so that there would be time to work out a lot of these details and to be able to go back and forth. And I know that we're working on getting the ombudsman. And until that happens, I just really appreciate the work that staff has put in to kind of meet those needs. So thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Just want to piggyback what Laura said. And having owned a downtown business, I can appreciate what business owners go through, because I was on the other side of things dealing with city council for a while. And sometimes it's not fun. So I can appreciate, and I appreciate both sides. So I appreciate having a very conducive meeting tonight. And hopefully, when it comes back next month, we'll have more answers.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I just want to remind the general public of like the reason why we really were even changing and reconfiguring our sidewalk cafes placements. It wasn't just for bike lanes, but I have been on council since 2020. Every summer, I receive complaints from pet owners, people with children, the general public, that they don't feel welcomed downtown because it's designed and prioritizes restaurants and bars, and they have a hard time just walking down the sidewalk. So it's trying to balance the wants and needs of, an entire city. And then we also really debated about, cutting across the sidewalk and the safety to not only pedestrians, but also wait staff. So we've taken into consideration a lot of different variables, and as Mitch said, we're doing our best, but sidewalk cafes, again, are, like you said, privilege, not a right.
Okay, anything further? Who's up, Jacob?
I move to accept the presentation as informational.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Council Filio. Anything further from the committee, public? Seeing none, all in favor? We are unanimous. Good, thank you all. Okay, now moving along, item 6, relating to the installation of a stop sign at Wilbur Street on Wilbur Street at Water Street, ordinance 0-2025-14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Roth, the city engineer. We're in front of the, Public Works is in front of the committee at the March 22nd MSFI meeting. We brought up the conditions that were identified to us through a public comment through C-Click Fix about an unsafe condition at this intersection. The committee voted unanimously to direct the city manager to draft an ordinance. We have done so, and it is for you here today. With that, I think it's pretty straightforward and consistent with our city code. Happy to answer any questions on it.
Any questions? Anyone from the public? Hello? Okay, therefore, how about a motion? Recommending adoption.
I'm lost. Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O-2025-14.
Second.
Motion's made by Council Workman, seconded by Filio.
I hope we
Anything
heard.
further? All in favor? Boom, good.
Okay,
You
great.
doing all the other ones?
Yes.
Okay.
The next item in your agenda is a draft ordinance for your review. This has been changed since the original reading, the first reading with City Council. So there's an A version in your packet is the changes that were made in red that we caught in preparing for this meeting to make sure that everything was accurate and correct for the ordinance, and then the actual ordinance as the second item. I'm happy to go through all these changes and why they've been made. Essentially, a lot of these locations deal with the Upper Winchester Street project and the addition of yield signs for that roundabout, those roundabouts that were installed. We've also, as like a sort of catch-all, all-inclusive, so we don't have this problem again, we're adding a descriptor at all approaches into roundabout intersections, which yield signs should be installed in regardless. The ones that are being eliminated, it's based on reconfiguration of that intersection. Some have traffic lights at this point, some are totally changed intersections. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but this is an update of the yield signs in the city code to reflect current conditions. It's not a full listing of yield signs, just to be clear on that.
City Attorney, are you happy and satisfied with all of this? So we don't have to drag him through line by line?
Oh, yeah, no, this is fine.
Boom, okay.
I'm like,
Thank you.
sure, yeah.
Committee? Okay. Who's up? Oh, Laura?
Just the only quick question, at all approaches into roundabout intersections, that would be like, it doesn't matter the type of road, right? So I'm thinking on 101, Winchester Street and 101, that, we're talking about that too.
Well, that would be state owned and maintained, so it wouldn't fall within city code. So all of
Okay.
these listed
Alright.
in here are within city code. Now, it's kind of redundant because we listed the 3 yield sign that were added as part of the Upper Winchester Street project, but it doesn't, if you read that, it's not explicitly clear where the yield sign is, so it's sort of reinforcing that point.
Okay, who's up? I've lost.
Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance 2025-11-A.
Second.
Seconded by Council Laura Tobin. Anything further from the public? Committee, all in favor? Boom, yep.
Thank you. The next item in your packet is the adoption or the draft reading of ordinance O-2025-12. This is unchanged since the first reading with City Council, and so there's only one ordinance in this case. I'm happy to go through all the reasons for changes, but sort of similar to the last one. These are mostly roundabouts, and some of them were errant entries. Main Street pedestrian light at St. Bernard's Church, that's not listed in the right location for what this is. So this is a cleanup of our city code to match what's been in place for roughly the last 30 years.
Again, City Attorney, you're happy? Good. Questions? Okay, motion.
That's me.
What? Oh,
Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O-2025-12.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Council Tobin, second by Filio. Anything further? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next.
Thank you. The next item in your agenda is a draft ordinance. This has been revised since the initial reading at City Council. A couple of median locations sort of fall between a gray area between whether they're state right-of-way or city right-of-way, and at roundabout locations, short divides. This ordinance is an update to city code of 2 things. So we're calling it a turning movement change ordinance. It's the elimination of some existing sign limitations that are no longer in place because roundabouts have been installed at those 2 locations, so there's no longer turns that those signs would apply to. And then there's turning limitations in the means of medians and islands, which are all listed out in the existing city conditions. I've got the roundabout location for each one and when it's installed if you need it, but I'm assuming you don't.
Again, you're good?
Thank you for checking. I'm good.
Okay, anything from the committee? Nope. Jacob.
Move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O-2025-13A.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Anything further? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
All right,
And
last
finally,
one.
More.
The last item in your agenda is the biggest one. It's draft ordinance O-2025-10A. This has been slightly revised since the first reading with City Council. There's a couple of items that we noticed weren't correct. One of the streets where a stop sign was removed at Meta-Warrant, so we put in a request to have that stop sign reinstalled based on existing city code. The other streets, most of these are roundabouts no longer exist, were wrongly entered initially, or they're describing traffic going in the wrong direction on a one-way street. So this updates the city code to what it is currently, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll go see any questions, and your attorney is good?
I do have a question.
Oh, you have a question?
In the A versions from the earlier ones we just looked at, there was some red text, which I
Yes.
assume is the change from
Yes.
city council to here.
That's correct.
This one, I'm not seeing any red text, but you said there were some changes?
There should be. I have one here. If you don't have it in my packet, I could make a copy of this one, and I could go
You
over
have
the
one?
ones that changed if you need to, but there should be two ordinances, one with red text and one with the final version for approval.
This is not online. Am I crazy?
Talk amongst yourselves.
You're not crazy.
Okay.
This is what.
Go.
Well, it seems the packet's fine. I will check that the website is right.
Okay.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, who's up for a motion?
I am. I move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O-2025-10-A.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by Council Filio. Anything further? All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. I apologize for giving you so many on the same night, but
Hey, that's fine.
we did good. We did good.
And I assume the city clerk is going to want us to vote on everyone individually, that we can't group these. But anyway, thank you all for coming. I thank the public that was here and staff. We're adjourned.